Alright, Diablo players, some good news came out in a brand new stream that they did in a update with Rob, and basically there is a lot of good things to look forward to in Season 11 now. Season 11 was heavily criticized. A lot of content creators, including myself, were kind of worried about the future of Diablo. But with this most recent update, there is some good stuff to look forward to, but there is some other bad things that we'll talk about. But I also want to kind of ask this question at the start, and by the time you guys finish the video, I'm curious to know if your mind about Season 11 has changed. Is it enough to keep you entertained? Because they're doing a lot of things. There's a big list. Most of these are genuinely pretty good, but I'm wondering, is it going to be enough to keep you entertained for another season here? So the first thing I want to talk about is there's going to be new itemization mods. There's going to be new affixes added to the items that we didn't actually have before. And I think the more stuff that you add to the game, while it does open up doors to build diversity and more potential with, let's say, cooldown reduction rolling in other areas, you're going to be able to maybe run certain builds you normally wouldn't run. And I think that that's actually a pretty cool thing. However, because if you add more mods to the pool, that also kind of bloats the amount of things when you're trying to reroll at the occultist. That can kind of be an issue. And I think that if we're going to keep on throwing in more possibilities for rolls, maybe instead of, let's say, 2 rolls in the area, we'll get maybe 3 or 4 rolls, because if you just keep on adding more, it just makes the roles that you want a lot more rare. And I totally get it from a Diablo player standpoint. You guys just want the things to just be relatively accessible because there's not like an in-game trade marketplace. And I think that's the big issue. If you add more, potential like mods, it's just harder to get what you want, right? And Diablo, I think, excels as a casual base game, not a super 30 hours a day minimum sort of an experience, right? They're also doing new pit nerfs to the monsters, as well as specifically nerfs to the boss's HP. So this is basically a buff to the players because they're nerfing the HP in the monsters. So that, I would say, is good. They also mentioned a pretty insane one over here. They did mention that they're going to be buffing gold by 800%. So this is going to be actually pretty good. So hopefully this will kind of stop people from having to go grab their mom's credit card, go to a third-party website, maybe spend $2 and max out on gold. So that is a massive change for specifically gold. But then on the other side of it, what I find is crazy with this, if they give all the players more gold, then that's going to make players not even trade in gold anymore, which I guess then you're going to use your gold, convert it to runes, because just like Diablo 2, gold doesn't really have big value, right? So this might actually change up the game in terms of the trade system, because if gold is so abundant that you literally cannot trade the billions and billions of gold for the item because people don't want it anymore, well, people are just going to ask for crypto again. If you guys have ever traded on Diablo.trade, you know that some people, they just ask you for crypto. They don't even want gold or whatever the currency anymore. They want something else. So there is kind of a double-edged sword with this, because as a player that does play this game quite a bit, I can tell you for sure, most people are never farming in-game gold to get what they want. They're getting items, trading it for gold, and then using that gold to buy the actual items, right? There's also a buff to basically all of the builds because they are nerfing all of the monsters' HP, and specifically it's the boss's HP in the tower and pit that were just out of control. And so if they nerfed all of that, they actually said there is a overall buff to 5 to 10 tiers, and basically this makes all the players a lot stronger. Now, 5 to 10 tiers may not seem that much, but it is actually a very big jump. 10 pit tiers is a massive jump, because about every pit tier is about 22% increased like X damage required. It depends on your build and stuff, but like you do need a decent amount of X, or like basically a multiplicative, another multiplier in terms of damage to conquer that next pit tier. So 10 pit tiers does matter unless they change the formula, and I'm assuming that this new formula may be different, because again, how it used to work is you needed about 22% more damage per pit tier to go up, right? But since they are nerfing everything, these may change. I don't know what the new numbers are, but just take it with a grain of salt. And one of the things that they did also talk about was the pit is too close to the tower, which I felt like too. If any of you guys played the tower or haven't seen it, check out the gameplay. I dropped it. That's the new mode in Season 11. And I was really excited that we were getting some new endgame content. I played it literally in the very first run. I was just like, what the heck is this? This feels, literally it's copy and paste pit. There's pylons, but it felt like a quick, like, let's just make something for the weekend sort of a mode. It didn't feel like a mode where I'm like, wow, this is brand new, built from scratch. And they said they did want to build the tower from scratch, and that's how it was kind of designed. And while I want to say that that would be great to have a new form of content, it was too close to it. So they did actually mention this in the interview, but there's going to be some big changes to specifically the pit and the tower. They didn't specify exactly when this is coming out. They said not season 11 though, so don't expect to see it, but they're going to go crazy with the pit, and I think this is kind of cool because the tower is supposed to be the new pit, kind of, because we use pit as a metric, right, to see how good a build actually is, and I think that was fine. I really don't know why they needed to change it, to be honest, but instead what they're going to do, the tower is the new thing where you're supposed to be able to test how good a build is, and how high you can climb is kind of how good the build actually is. But instead, what they're going to be doing is the pit now is going to go crazy. They mentioned things like on all goblin rifts, they're just going to go throw crazy things in the pit, and I would have said that would have been smart for the tower because the pit would then stay the same, and then the tower is this new thing. But now it's like, okay, now pit is the new thing, and the tower is now the metric, right? So however they want to do it, as long as we're getting new content, I'm happy, but it just doesn't make sense from at least my point of view, because I'm going to give you guys my thoughts, and you guys can let me know, am I wrong? Do you guys agree? Make the new thing the new content, not like, well, the pit is now going to be this, and then the new thing is now going to be the pit. That's what it looks like. Anyways, the tower is going to be more rewarding over here. So that's not going to happen necessarily in season 11 because this is like a beta, but the towers also in the newer updates will eventually let you see everyone's builds. There's no hiding, and I think this is a really good update because if you want to see the best build, because the tower is the new metric, right? So they want the tower to be a system where you cannot hide your build, because it was something where you can private your profile, because if people were to cheat, this happened before on like the pit leaderboards, people would hide intentionally certain things. They would hide the damage numbers because they were cheating, and basically for me at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's a bug build. If it's there, it's there. I mean, Diablo is this game where majority of the best builds are bugged, and if it's bugged, I just want to know, okay, that's the bug, that's how it's done, that just lets me see it. So I think that's a good thing, and obviously this lets Blizzard maybe see and understand which builds are doing certain things, right? And also for integrity, it does help, right? And then also what I found interesting is they said that the new tower rewards are not going to be leaderboard based. So I think this is a good thing, because to be honest, the tower, if they want this, like, you know, rank leaderboard top 10 whatever system, it makes it so a lot of the casuals, right? Because if you're only giving a reward to the top 10 players, then like you're really catering towards like such a low amount of players that like, why even bother making the content, right? Where your average gamer dad is never going to receive these rewards, right? However, they're changing it to make it so it's based on certain like breakpoints. So they said like I think it was like 1, 5, 10, and I don't know, maybe it's going to go 20, 30. Every single increment that you personally can achieve, you're going to be getting stuff. So some of the stuff that they mentioned are going to be gear, there's currency, there's going to be transmog, and then also titles. Now, I'm not sure what they mean by currency. I don't know if this is like boss materials, because I'm assuming this is an area where you are doing specifically the content that is the hardest content in the game. So why would they give you like boss materials? I don't know if this means platinum. That would be actually pretty cool. Let me know, guys, what you think of that. I think it'd be really cool to be able to like play the game and then earn platinum, which if you guys don't know what platinum is, that's the in-game cash shop item that you use to buy skins. And I think that if they let people earn some small amount, obviously they're not going to give you like thousands of platinum every single day, but if they like let you get some, I think that this would actually really like encourage people to actually buy or even check out the shop. I think this is a really smart decision if they do that. Make it so like maybe every once in a while you can get a skin for free. And I think that this would actually help them make more money, because if people are like, well, I got half the currency, I slap down $5 and get a new skin, I think that there could be like a good balance point between like, yeah, players will spend more money on the shop, but then also it lets players that are like 100% like, I'm not spending anything, to still want to play the game, because when the leaderboard's more consistent and competitive, that kind of encourages people to play the game more, and I think overall that'd be a great thing. And then transmogs, basically like skins that are special for, and then also titles, and they also mentioned a new cosmetic called these new halos. They did not show off any pictures of these, but these are supposed to be exclusive top tier rewards that, I mean, I'll be honest, probably all like the content creators are going to be getting these, and then your average gamer dad, I got 2 hours to spend in the game before my wife yells at me. These are kind of the rewards that you guys probably won't get, but nonetheless, it does make it feel special for those players, and when you see someone like that, you're like, wow, that guy's got that cool thing, and I think that is like not so bad, because it's just a cosmetic, right? It doesn't affect gameplay, so I think that that's good. Whereas like these whole gear and currency things, these are all tied to, again, specifically you personally, not the top 10. So I think that this is actually looking to be a lot better. But I'm also kind of curious about how you guys feel about the buffs, because when they said that they want to buff the player base, right, by 5 to 10 tiers, if you guys don't remember, the high end on like some of the top tier new builds, guys, like I was even playing the new Dance of Knives, it was like a struggle to do a 65, and even if I got the perfect stuff, I'm thinking like 75 was kind of the numbers that they were shooting for, and they specifically said 80 to 85 is the new top, and that actually lines up perfectly with what I was saying, where like you take top tier players, like I play this game a lot. I've been ranked 1 multiple times in a lot of the different Diablo games. And I'm telling you, the Dance of Knives Rogue was very, very mid. I tapped out at basically thinking that 75 was the metric. And then I went and saw Makuna do the brand new Frozen Orb. He did 75. And I'm like, okay, if you take some of the top tier Diablo players and they're only doing this and then they buff it by 5 to 10 pit tiers, your average gamer probably won't even hit this. They're probably looking at like 75 now. When you take the top tier players, they could probably do, 85, but an average-ish player, well, that's to keep it realistic, 75 is going to be their top tier, right? But I don't know if I would consider this a healthy balance. And I never want this game to be balanced around the players like myself or the other content creators that can play 30 hours a day. I think that they should be looking at the balance of like kind of majority of the player base to be able to at least level up their glyphs. And I think this is a bad decision to make it so the top end, they specifically said top end is 80 to 85. Why is the top end of the best builds doing this as the pit tier? I think the best builds should be able to do way beyond 100, and that all builds as a baseline should be able to level up their glyphs to 100, because some people, they only like playing Frozen Orb, they only like playing Fireball. Let them at least kind of play the game. I personally don't see the decision and the design of like, we have our glyphs to 100 and you can't level them up. Like there's some builds that like, sorry man, there's only 2 out of like 20 builds that can manage it on your character class. I don't consider that a healthy balance still, and this is where I would say this is bad. I will repeat myself again, like I said for my previous feedback, and I did give Blizzard feedback as a Diablo partner. I told them, hey man, I think the baseline, all builds should aim for 100, and then some builds can go beyond that. I think that is good, because what this does is it makes it so if your build is not meta, you literally hit a wall. That's like, you can't progress anymore. It's not like I just need better gear. It's like literally you take a top tier player and you tell them to play a certain build, and the build cannot progress. And I think that kind of feels bad. I also, in general, this is like a small note that I've always felt like in Diablo, why does the game go to pit 150, and then if they also add tower reward 150, and tower is a little bit harder than the pit currently from the PTR, but if the game goes to pit 150, I just don't get why, because it's literally impossible. Like the only times like I've done a pit 150, was it legit? No. The only time people that are doing 150s are cheating and using bug builds. Sometimes it's unintentional bugs, and sometimes it's not necessarily cheating, because like sometimes you just equip an aspect. Sometimes it's like a bug where you're unequipping the stuff 1,000 times. But what I'm trying to say is that like, why does this game have this mode that is like literally unachievable? It just doesn't make any sense. So I would say at least have maybe every single season 1 or 2 builds can do 150. I just don't get why it's actual impossible content. Now, another thing that they did mention is that Chaos Powers could come back, but later. I don't know exactly the date, but I don't know if it's going to be aspects. I don't know how it's going to work, but that's still good. They're not like, you know what, Chaos Powers are cool, but they were too strong. Because I really love the Mana Shield, the Raven's Druid, some of these things where you would use basic skills to 100% overpower. I like this. This was one of the most fun seasons, but what I found really strange is they even said Chaos Armors were boring. I don't get that. If they said that if they were to keep them in the game, Chaos Armors would be boring because everyone would equip them. I already talked about this in my previous feedback where they did another interview and they said that the Chaos Powers are boring. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? This is the most fun I've had in the game. The Chaos Powers are awesome, but I totally understand if they keep them in the game, every single slot will be Chaos Armor. And so my solution to this, and I gave them the feedback, so hopefully they will take that into consideration, is that like, just don't delete the Chaos Armors. I think it'd be so cool on Eternal just to let us keep them, and then we can equip 1 or 2 Chaos uniques. That's it. I think that like that way, even if it's just 1, I like the idea of Kanai's Cube too, to be honest, but that's like a Diablo 3 thing. which is kind of what Chaos Powers do. But I think that just allowing us to equip just one, opens up so much for build diversity and opens up so many areas for just brand new builds that could come out in the future because we can use the old Chaos armor on Eternal. And this would actually make Eternal so much cooler. But I think that the Chaos Powers in the baseline just should be in the game, and also Chaos Uniques. That was another thing I want to actually, Chaos Uniques and Powers. I would like both of them to coexist, but I was mainly talking about Chaos Armors not going away, right? Where we have those Chaos Armors. I want those to stay in the game permanently, and I think that that's a great addition, just to keep it in the game permanently. As far as powers go, I would love for these to stay in permanently too, but I really think that they're just, you can't just keep them in permanently. So as far as the other things coming back into the game, this is something that could come back later, whether it's powers or just having the Chaos Armors. I think that both would be an excellent addition. But anyways, there's another update for quality of life, which is actually quite good. This is the Belial's Eye. If you guys didn't know, there's a change in the pit where you see these Belial's Eyes. You have to click on them. But now if you just walk over them, they automatically activate. So it's a good quality of life. And then on top of that, they mentioned the pit XP. So if you guys play the game, you know that like doing pit 55 to 70, depending on your build, maybe you can go like 85, 90. But your whole goal is not to do pit like 120s, right? Or even if you can do it, the XP rate is pretty bad. They said that they do want to change this. It's going to be better for harder content, so you actually get rewarded for it, which is good. They said they're going to be changing it later, not season 11 though, so maybe season 12. I don't know. There's just, again, there's no date for this, but I think that this is good that they at least acknowledge this, because I think this is kind of an issue where it's like, well, the whole point of like, you know, leveling to Paragon 300 is like going to be just doing low tier pits versus harder. Some of the new things they mentioned here, so they didn't show off all the affixes. The only two that they mentioned here, because they said they're adding new affixes, and that's huge. If they add cooldown in gloves and rings, you could easily probably get 100% of cooldown reduction. It only equals to 75, because you can only cap yourself at 75 cooldown reduction on your skills. Now, there is also a baked flat number one that overrides this, so there could be a lot of cool builds that are perma something in season 11, which I think is cool. This is season 11, by the way. This is not season 11, but they are adding more affixes. The cooldown reduction is one of the most important things for maintaining a certain thing, and I think this is awesome. And then they also mentioned that they're going to be doing a balance on some of the weighted rolls. So if you guys have ever tried to reroll an amulet, you know that it's like, good luck trying to get the good stat, right? So they're going to do a little bit of balance on that. They didn't specify the numbers, but that's great. They also mentioned as far as sanctification, they want to keep it the way it is, where sanctification is final, no more mods. I think that it'd be kind of cool to keep on sanctifying the item, but this is some feedback that like they're taking, and they're like, no, we want to keep it the way it is. Maybe they'll update it later. Nonetheless, I think that that's kind of a mistake, especially if we want to change an aspect on sanctification. So in the interview over here, Colin had said that like 1 out of 5 chance on the tempering, because we were talking about tempering, that it feels unfun. This is a timestamp too. So basically, like the idea of tempering, of like getting a 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 4 chance for your skill to do double damage, right? This is like the biggest one. It feels unfun, and I absolutely agree. It's great that they acknowledge this, but then if you go to like the sanctification, to get a good mod, it's like 1 in 300 for the plus to core skills. But I get that they want something to be like really good for dopamine, but like, I don't know if you guys have tried to get the core skill one, but yeah, it was like 1 in 300. And if you want to get this on every single piece of gear, good luck, man, especially on a mythic. So I think that this over here with the sanctification over here, it goes down like the way I view it, right? Because I'm trying to give them good feedback. If a chance of 1 out of 5 is unfun for tempering, how is the chance for 1 in 300 now good in sanctification? I think that if they can add more sanctification mods, so like if this is like 1 out of 3, it's still better, but I think that people don't like to have no control over what happens in the item, and I think that this is specifically with Diablo players. Like, I play Path of Exile, and like, yeah, sure, when you go like prefixes or suffixes can't be changed, and it's like, well, I got a 1 in 5 chance to get something good. People that play Path of Exile, they accept that sort of thing. And I want to say, since Diablo is a really good casual entry action RPG, and I think that this is where the game excels, make it a little bit more consistent, or maybe have some ways to maybe get 2 sanctification stones, and then you can choose the one you want. I just feel like Diablo players, because I'm trying to think of what players actually want, not what I personally want. What players want is they just want the guaranteed thing. The reason why people complain about tempering masterworking is just like, it's just a slot machine. This over here, if you want the rings to core skills, like I said, good luck, man. It's just, it bricks the item in that state. Like, you can't change it anymore. Whereas at least with tempering, you get to roll a couple times. This is like a one and done, right? So what I think is interesting with like the way that they were talking about how it's unfun for a 1 in 5 trance, at least I can slot machine the same roll multiple times. With Sanctification, not only is it a 1-300, it's just like a one and done, right? I cannot sanctify again. Whereas like with the temper, I can use a reroll scroll. Like, there's stuff to do. So I just don't understand this like logic. And I think that this is correct though. Colin, you are right when you say there's a 1 in 5 chance of tempering. It feels unfun. But how does this make sense, right? Even if I don't know what the actual in-game number is, but let's say it's even like 1 out of 100, because the results of my Sanctification stats were it's bad, man, to get the ranks to core skills, and that's not even counting the higher roll. It's like 2 to 3. Because it breaks the item in that state. And then they also were saying that, like, they're gonna maybe like loosen up on the mythics not being able to remove stats, because like you could literally get a Harlequin and get like a really good GA. Let's say you get GA cooldown reduction Harlequin and you go ahead and sanctify at the very end and you just remove the cooldown reduction. I would be screaming. Although I'd be very excited, because that'd be a very funny clip to, farm for content, because that's a very painful thing to do. So I kind of like it for that reason of you being able to brick things, but they're removing that. Now I obviously am saying that like I like that because it makes funny content, but I don't think that that's great for the game. So I'm not going to give them a suggestion of, yeah, let people brick their mythics because it's funny, because it's great for, clip farming. But I think that in general, mythics are already an area where I just don't find them fun to be farmed again and again every single season. I think that like if I've already farmed it, like, the first time you get a mythic, it's exciting. But nowadays it's just like, dude, just give me my mythic. Just give me my mythic. I don't want to play this anymore. I've been doing Belial runs for an hour. Like, I just want my thing, right? And then you drop it and it's like Melted Heart. However, Melted Heart won't be bad this time. So they said the no infinite evade telly, they're still not going to change that. Barb nerf to the infinite like leap spam, that's getting nerfed too. So basically they don't want the game to be like rapid fire anymore. That's their design decision. Okay. Anyways, Melted Heart. They said that they are changing some of the numbers here. Like, instead of it scaling off the stats, it's like doubling your main stat or your main resources, right? So they are removing the caps on it, but this is huge. But they are changing some of the numbers. My guess is they're going to make it so you can't really scale it that high, but they are removing caps. So this makes this mythic actually like one of the best mythics in the game for a lot of builds, right? Some of the builds that can benefit off this are going to be the Barb, Druid, and Necro. Now they said that they're going to be removing the caps. Does this also mean Serpentine and Beastfall Boots? Otherwise, if you allow Melted Heart Selig to be in this area where there's on-cap, you just basically said, yeah, sorry, if you're not Barb, Druid, Necro, your class sucks. And that's straight up going to be relevant, because if you guys didn't know, Rogue was super far behind. Sork wasn't insanely far behind, but like if you let all these things be uncapped, these classes go to the moon. And if you have Serpentine and any of these other like class-specific ones, you basically make it so it's Season of Melted Heart Selig, which, I'll be honest, I'm cool with it with the season, because that item has sucked for so long. And so if you make a season where like everyone needs something, I think some people will complain, but at the end of the day, at least it makes it good. And they said also Chaos Rifts could come back. They also said no auction house or trade and plans at the moment. They may add the rebirth feature that Diablo 3 had in the future. And then another thing that I thought was really interesting in the dev stream is they mentioned that like at some point, right, when we're talking about like leveling up the glyphs, and they were talking about like what does the player want to do at some point when they're kind of like done with the game. He mentioned, and I thought this was really interesting, that Colin mentioned, he said, do they want to take a break for the season and come back refreshed for like the next season? I'm thinking, why would you ever say this in like a developer interview? Your ideal goal should be like, yo, we want this season to be absolutely amazing. We want our players to want to play 30 hours a day. That's the way I see it. I don't see like if you make all these changes to make the player ever think, do I want to take a break from this game? This is the opposite. So I want to say that when you make some of these players hit the wall, right, when we're just talking about like Pit 85 being kind of like the premium end for the better players of the game to basically that's their wall, right? I think that is a bad idea. You do not want the players taking a break, because remember, this is a games as a service. If this was a game where it's like you're going to only release expansion packs, but if you're going to make it seasonal content, you have a shop that has rotational stuff, you have events, you want your players to be excited, and you never want your players to think about taking a break. So this is where I felt like I was really curious to see how they felt about like the idea of players leaving and then coming back, because I remember Joe Papora was talking about like, okay, well, players can take a break and come back to the game. But I just see this as the complete opposite. I'm curious to know how you guys feel about this. Do you guys like this idea of games kind of being designed as a service, but then also they want players to take a break? Because sometimes you take a break from a game and like, dude, it's hard to get back into the game. And I think that's kind of an issue where it's like they add too much stuff and you're like, oh, dude, I don't know what's going on. Like, I love that game, First Ascendant, but like I took a break for a while with that game. Dude, it was too hard to get back into, especially when a game is as a service. So I really want them to kind of consider, don't make your players ever think about wanting to take a break for a season. Because I saw a lot of people talking about, hey, I'm not going to play this season. Season 11 sucks. I see it. And like, you know, these are, what I'm talking about is like all relatively good changes, but I still think that like you really should think about, let the players get all their glyphs to 100. It really, like, what downsides do you have to have all the players for every single build to at least be able to level up their glyphs, right? This is like the thing. I would love for Diablo players to play 30 hours a day, not just because, you know, I'm a Diablo content creator, so I benefit off of this, but they also benefit off the players sticking around and not wanting to take a break for the season. But that's basically what I wanted to talk about. Those are the updates. You guys can let me know your thoughts. And again, and now that you guys have made it to the end of the video, if you did, congrats, you win. But is it enough to make you guys excited about Season 11? I honestly want to say, if you tell me 100% gold buff, you're like, we're going to be nerfing the boss's HP, so, you know, things don't take like 5-10 minutes to kill the Rift Guardian, right? I think that it doesn't make it exciting for me. I'm going to be straight up with you guys. I don't think it's enough. I think that I'm going to check it out regardless. I'm going to rock in. The Melted Heart of Select thing is actually looking pretty cool. As long as you put it up for all classes, though. Don't just make it just for like 3 classes, all right? Make it for all classes, and then you have a little bit more interest for me personally. But I just don't see it as enough content. When you compare it to the other things that are in the market, as far as action RPGs go, the amount of content that you're getting is really just sanctification. Like, your whole builds are nerfed. But if they add more sanctification mods, and I actually gave Blizzard a lot of cool ideas for sanctification mods, hopefully they're going to take them into consideration, because if they do, we're looking at something really cool for the next season. Like, some of the stuff I was talking about was like equipping things from another character, adding skills from another character. If you could make your mercenaries permanent, like, there's a lot of cool sanctification mods that could exist in the game, but when your sanctification, your best mod in the entire game is like 1 out of 300, and it's like plus ranks to core skills, which is just a numbers game, I think it's a little bit less interesting than adding like build diversity. If you look at Path of Exile, when they added so many different ascendancy, like, you know, end game, like, kind of classes in a sense, because some of these can open up the doors for brand new builds. That's the stuff that I was looking at with Diablo. And Season 10 was such a fantastic season with, like, the Chaos armors that, like, you could build newer things, like the Tornado Necromancer, the Raven's Druid. You had all these, like, weird things that normally wouldn't be able to be being played because of the Chaos powers, and then also the Chaos uniques allowed you to slot things in for greater itemization and greater diversity, as well as just being able to be more creative in a game. And I think that that's what makes an action RPG interesting, is that you're able to like build something kind of cool and unique, not to go back and be like, okay, I can't wait to play the same exact build of Hydra that I've been playing. This is the best build in 3 seasons in a row. All right, I'm gonna lock in Death Trap Rogue because it's the best thing again, right? So I think that that is something that they could consider. Anyways, that's gonna be my thoughts. Let me know yours down below. Again, is Season 11 enough to get you guys hyped? Anyways, take care, Diablo players, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace out.